Welcome guys, gals and non-binary pals to this week's episode of Buffy Boys, your weekly review of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from a queer, literary and feminist perspective. My name is Joel, I'm one of your hosts, and with me as always is your other mendacious host.
Brian, hi.
How are you keeping, Brian?
Grand. What does mendacious mean?
Oh, you're a liar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or prone to lying, mendacious and other deceptions.
That does sound like me, to be fair.
Yeah. Very, very, very gingerly and gently trying to open your water bottle as we start recording.
Yeah, so what of it? What are you going to do about it?
Evidently, historically, nothing.
Yeah, true.
So we're here this week to talk about that thing we talk about every week, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah.
Specifically, season 5, episode 14, Crush.
Yeah, indeed. This episode was first aired on February the 13th, 2001, one day early for love, and it was directed by Dan Attias, still don't know how to pronounce that, who last directed Shadow, and written by David Fury, who last wrote Shadow. So.
The
a writing duo or a working duo. Sorry,
the Shadow Man,
the Shadow Cabinet, or whatever. I don't know, some English nonsense. So first off, we want to start off with an apology for all our UK viewers who are listeners who got in touch over the last couple of weeks to tell us how horrifyingly racist we are towards English people. We want to apologise for that. You're such little bitches, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry, Nigel.
Sorry, Nigel. No, I'm just kidding. That never happened because I think people are aware that that's fine.
And people are chill.
Also, people are chill, and we also didn't do a podcast last week. We did it 2 weeks ago because we
were afraid of reprisals.
No, we took a week off last week because I can't remember. We were just tired, I think.
Pandemic.
We had stuff to do. Pandemic. Yeah. It's also like the busiest time of the year for me. So, okay.
So what kind of busy?
What kind of busy?
So kind of busy.
Yeah, kind of busy, I suppose. Much more busy than like every so often Joel's like comes to me, he's like, yeah, I had a really busy day, I had to send up 10 emails, and I'm like, I have had days in the past where I've sent 500.
Yeah, but your emails are all like X, XL, M, you know.
Okay. Anyway, it makes it sound like I work for a sex toy company.
Many things have sizes, Brian. You don't have to bring it to that level of filth.
I think you did, Joel.
Yeah.
Okay, so oh yeah, Buffy and summary. That's what I do next. I'm so thrown. I'm like trying to balance my water bottle without making huge noises.
See terrible things in our future. Pouring water all over my soundboard.
Your soundboard, Joel. You don't know how to plug in the microphones. Okay, here we go. Spike persuades Harmony to impersonate Buffy for sex games. Dawn tells Buffy that Spike loves her. An LA train full of corpses arrives in Los Sunnydale. Buffy investigates. Spike tells her of his feelings. Drusilla tells Spike that Chip no longer works and takes him to the Bronze, giving him a fresh corpse to drain. They capture Buffy, then Spike takes Drusilla prisoner, offering to stake her to prove his love for Buffy. Buffy rejects him. Harmony shoots him and leaves. Drusilla gives up on him. Buffy bars him from Summer's house. Now, let me just confirm. That was 3 sentences in total.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a series of badly used semicolons.
Well, James Joyce made a whole career out of that, so...
Sort of. Like, I mean, he made a chapter kind of like that. Why ever make a James Joyce reference? I mean, Joe, I will just correct you. Just
to show everyone how likable you are.
Yeah.
So speaking of likable, what have we liked to be doing this week?
Yeah. So we were saying we could talk about the Queen's Gambit, but I feel like everyone's talking about the Queen's Gambit. Everyone likes that shit, and we only kind of like it. I don't think we're...
There's chess in it.
There is chess in it, but I
also growing up Dudley Dursley.
That's true. I do know chess well enough. I don't like it. I think it's shit. We were also watching.
You think chess? Sorry, your final word on that is you think chess is shit.
Yeah, I mean, like it's such a ridiculous barrier for entry where it's like, oh, to understand how to play the game is X, and then to get any enjoyment or any engagement or any fun out of it, you need to have studied huge amounts of books and stuff. It's just it's bad gameplay.
Speaking of good gameplay though.
Yeah, but the other thing I was gonna say there was we also watched a bunch of The Crown season 1, so we're very up to date with that. But we're actually really enjoying it.
Yeah. When did that come out? Like 2016?
2016 or 2017.
Yeah, so we're not exactly on the pulse.
No, not quite.
But a lot of people have been dead for years, so
we are on the pulse with the PS5. We got a PS5 on release last week on Thursday. It was released a week later in Europe and other places.
Feel free to hate us.
Yeah, do feel free to hate us. We had to pick it up from the shop down the road, and it's during lockdown, so it was click and collect. But I had to get my pre-order. The pre-order process was really grueling. I have nightmares still. But we picked it up, and I had to then get home with a clear plastic bag with what is probably the most sought after item in the world at the moment on a regular consumer basis. And it was very uncomfortable. And I had
so carrying a big bag that says vaccine on the side,
basically. But it's really good. Everyone keeps talking about the DualSense, which is the new controller for the PS5, but how cool it is, and it's very, very cool. The vibration is really, really like specific, like
localized.
The example people keep giving is like there's a game that comes with the PS5, which is Astrobot's Play something, whatever, and if you're walking across glass, say, you can feel like you're walking across something thin and kind of like reverberating, and then if you're walking across sand, you feel like you're walking across something crunchy. But my favorite thing about it is it has adaptive triggers, which means that if you press R2 or L2, the controller will like resist. So let's say if you're trying to like shoot
there's tension,
and there's loads of tension, so let's say if you're trying to shoot with it and you have to go past a clicking point to like get your shot off, it like physically has a click, and it's predetermined by the game and stuff. It's very, very, very satisfying. But the game I've been playing most is Demon's Souls, which we've talked about the Soul series and From Software games a ton before. But this is the one that was released in 2009 for PS3, and basically I played like probably 10 or 12 hours of it originally, and then never got back into it because I'm lazy. But it's so pretty. It's so good looking. Yeah,
the original is probably
this is a remake for PS5.
Yeah. The original is probably be fair to say, probably like the lost precursor of the Soul series, because while people like it, and it's kind of disconnected now from the more modern rung of games. It's kind of just a little harder to play because it's on the PS3, etc.
Yeah, and he wants to break out the PS3 these days. But so it's very cool. PS5, like it. Would recommend.
I think you've described Demon's Souls as the most beautiful game you've ever played.
No, it's really, really beautiful, yeah. And I don't mean like aesthetically, if you get me. I'm not sitting there. You know when you played Journey for the first time and you're like, had a little cry because how beautiful it was? It's not
expressive.
No, it's more like this is the most visually like comprehensive and effective game I've seen in a long time. It's very cool. Otherwise, we were watching a bunch of crashing, which is very interesting. Yeah,
so it's one of these weird just things I picked up on my list to watch over the years. Usually things that are recommended as box sets by all four of all things, which occasionally turn out to be quite bizarrely good, and sometimes they're absolute utter trash. But a couple of reasons why it came back on my radar, even though I did initially make us watch it on all four, it actually came to Netflix, which is actually I realized later, which is why I remembered it. But it was a short classic kind of UK 6-episode situational comedy kind of. Is that right? I wouldn't say no, it's not a sitcom, but a comedy show anyway, by Phoebe Waller-Bridges, who shot to fame for her portrayal and creation of Fleabag, which we've discussed,
as well as her writing for or her show running of Killing Eve.
Both these things absolutely successful in similar times, but I think if you were to recognize her, it would be from Fleabag. And I always had the impression that Crashing was from years and years ago, but it's actually only from 2016. It's like this weird contrived premise where a group of people in London are being employed as property guardians. So basically they occupy and live in a disused hospital with council permission or developer permission probably, and by living there stop it from being demolished. That's what I think is happening, but they really have not bothered to explain the premise. It's just a lot of upsetting imagery, like full double beds in hospital wards and stuff with duvets and all that kind of stuff.
It's really bizarre.
But it's actually, as a writing often is, it's quite funny. It's incredibly uncomfortable to watch at times. There's an Irish character. There's a pretty decent gay storyline. Yeah,
we're not sure how it's going to go yet, but it's
definitely gay though.
And one of the actors at least is gay,
but not the one you think.
Oh, it's the one I thought.
Not the one I thought. And it's been like a weird little gem, and I just expected to watch it by myself. So I'm excited that we're getting to watch it together.
Yeah, very good. I was trying to think of something funny to say there. It's gone though.
By funny, do you mean rude?
Maybe. Booker just absolutely fucked himself, like at the cat tree. Booker's a cat, not another human being, and he nearly toppled the whole thing. But he's now currently like about to fall off, but also grooming his tail by trying to like bend himself backwards to get it up towards his face, and then aggressively licking it / attacking it.
Where he's lying is exactly in the eye line of where anyone I video call for work will see.
Yeah.
So I've gotten very no, this is just where I have to sit, and I've gotten very practiced at pretending like that kind of. Do you remember those toys? Which was like it looked like a ferret on the end of a string, and you kind of spin it. It looked like a ferret.
Worm on a string, whatever it was called.
Yeah, that's basically what Booker is always doing behind me.
Yeah, it's true. He's a good lad though.
What's your transition?
My transition is, he's not a good lad. Spike. Yeah,
it's true.
He's a bit of a shithead.
So in this episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Crush,
we have a kind of very focused plot theme, if not always in structure, but we have the eruption of Spike's relationship, such as it is with Buffy. Her finding out that he believes he's in love with her, and all this precipitated by the return of Drusilla, his former longtime lover, and kind of yet leads into a messy culmination of that whole romantic side of Spike's storyline, including a standoff between him, Drusilla, Buffy, Harmony, and a mannequin with a wig that looks like Buffy. So what do you think of this episode, Brian?
Yeah, I liked it. No, sorry, that was me completely on autopilot because I was thinking about something else. I didn't like it. I thought it was a mess. I thought it was pretty lacking in structure or plot. And to be honest, it kind of deals with my number one least favorite aspect of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is Spike and Spike related focus, where he doesn't really, warrant it in my view.
You're not a Buffy advocate then?
I'm not. I really do feel like the degree to which people absolutely fell in love with Spike as a character, and like not on the basis of strong writing necessarily, because this episode was badly written. There were just lines of dialogue where I was like, this is bizarre and bad. But the episode is just, it's basically kind of giving a huge amount of attention to Spike, where I don't think he warrants it a huge amount. So in this episode, Spike is I'm just talking shite. I'm getting so distracted. Sorry, Joe. What did you think of the episode?
Yeah, I enjoy watching it, although I would never say, if you really want to get into Buffy, season 5, episode 14, Crush, that's what you need to check out, for a lot of reasons. I enjoyed it for a few reasons. One, because I don't remember it, so it was like watching a new episode of Buffy to a certain degree.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm kind of keeping a very close beady eye on the whole Spike and Buffy thing, because I really want to think this time through how they actually, I just took it passively at the time. I want to really think about how they're portraying it. So I think that James Marsters, good actor, I enjoy him doing his thing. And I thought we saw some interesting other sides of the whole Sunnydale dynamic, because as I said, this season I think it very much lives in the characters rather than carried always by the momentum of the plot. I think while Glory is introduced early in season 5, I think it's quite like a background thing happening for a lot of the season up until now. So we get to see some of the interactions between the whole gang at the refurbished Bronze. We can see Xander's taking issue with Dawn not fancying him exclusively anymore, Spike dealing with Dawn, Joyce talking with Spike and Dawn in the kitchen. A lot of different little interactions that you wouldn't actually get a lot of prior to this. So I enjoyed that, but I thought just it needed a few more passes on everything. Really, it was like you had that feeling of, I'm gonna go fix that later. I'm gonna go refine it later. I like seeing Drusilla. I think this is her last time.
It's her last current day appearance in the Buffy and Angel universe. I'm not sure which comes back to in a flashback later on. Yeah, but she does come back to one of them. I think it might be Angel.
I thought it was enjoyable, but it was kind of quite an odd inclusion in some ways. I think it makes sense narratively for what it was, but with Drew there in season 5, you really do feel like, you were of an earlier era of the show, a slightly less well lit era of the show.
Yeah, and it kind of feels like it's trying to put Spike's like history behind him to some degree, or create like draw a line in the sand, and it really fails to do that because it just feels like you're dredging up old history and not letting the character move past it, and then also kind of saying, oh look, no, he's actually bad, but then also he's actually good, and it's like, well, no, it's not complicated, he's just bad. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no, I don't know, the episode feels like it ends on a note of reversion to kind of like maybe 5 episodes ago, you know, where like a couple episodes ago Buffy was kind of trusting Spike a little bit to take care of Dawn and Joyce or whatever, to now she is like, oh, I don't trust him at all. It's like, yeah, you didn't trust him at all really, like just about 5 episodes ago.
Yeah.
Around whenever just before Riley left, she was like, oh, I hate Spike, and it's like, I hate Spike, and it's like, well, great, that's pretty much where we were.
Yeah. But also, even within this episode, when Dawn quote unquote goes missing, she does burst into Spikes and say, I need your help finding her. So I don't think there's anything to be said about the idea that Buffy's in any way kind of like contributing to the situation, but I do think her portrayed feelings about Spike are inconsistent moment to moment.
100%. Yeah. I'm not suggesting for a second that Buffy is like, I don't know,
leading him on, which is what Joyce suggested.
Yeah, I don't think she's leading him on, and I don't think she's like, I don't think it's in her character really to be romantically interested in Spike at this point, or even later, let's be real. But yeah, no, so yeah, this is a very odd moment in Buffy. I think this is very much the beginning of the Spike fandom intruding on the narrative in a way that, like, I think is not intentional in the sense, I don't think I think all fandoms want things to go the way that they want it to go.
Yeah.
And I think if the writers decide to adapt to that, that's an interesting choice in situations. In other situations, it's a bit of a, like, you know, Castiel and whatever his name is moment.
Which I ended up very
Castiel,
badly.
is that the
Destiel?
Destiel.
Yeah.
It's kind of a Destiel kind of structure, and it's like, it wasn't actually literally the same thing, where it's like, oh, we're flirting for years, and I've just died at the very end of our storyline where I've said, we're in love.
I don't think a show of Buffy's quality could ever descend to the depths of something supernatural, but no, the common thread is there, absolutely. Yeah.
And listen, I think the writing for season 7 or late season 6, early season 7 for Spike is much better, because it does fix the fatal flaw at the heart of this nonsense, which is Spike doesn't have a soul. Spike is like, whatever reason we're supposed to find for it being excusable and useful metaphorically, that vampires aren't, you aren't culpable for killing vampires and you are in the right. Mm-hmm. This messes with it in a way that's just shitty writing in some ways. And like, it kind of feels like the writers are kind of, to some degree, on the side of Dawn when she says in this episode, well, you know, Spike is a chip. That's basically the same as a soul. Yeah. It's like, no.
I think there's some interesting questions they introduce with that, regardless of how well they handle it, the explication of them, because, you know, a lot of what Drusilla says is around kind of whether, you know, like this, the chip specifically is behavioral modification circuitry, and whether the fact that he has been prohibited from behaving a certain way is the same as changing. Mm-hmm. And I think what complicates that is that there's nothing suggesting that he has even thinks he wants to change for any reason other than it's just to look like what Buffy wants. He hasn't really shown any even light motivation to like not be terrible. Yeah,
I agree.
But that being said, you could see the kind of the intro to philosophy argument that if a soul is essentially a conscience in this context, and the weight of your behavior prevents you from doing worse things, is that mechanically different from a chip that prevents you through pain, because it's a different kind of pain, a different kind of restraint. But I think it's like a complexity to that obviously overlooks.
Well, it really does, because I mean, like, if you look at what the season of Angel to this point has been talking about and bandying around, is that a huge part of the issue of the soul stuff and about what it means is the remorse and deep trauma it causes in the person specifically through Darla, like being ensouled and actually feeling like wanting redemption, and that have being snatched from her or whatever. But and then Angel experiencing all this stuff, and Angel having a complex experience while being ensouled is very different to someone saying you physically cannot do harm. I think it's a line that is drawn by the show and then like danced around by the show, which is I'm not a fan of it. But it's an interesting one, and Drusilla's appearance, it's thrilling. I love seeing Drusilla. The portrayal of her up to the point where she's actually shown is bizarre. Like when
she's a werewolf, basically.
A werewolf, or so she's the guy comes onto the train to check out what's happened, and it's full of dead bodies.
Sutton apparently is his name, even though it's not mentioned in the episode.
He's Sutton.
Foster.
I'm trying to think of a funny like train related word that sounds like Foster. Sutton Faster. But he's on the train. He's looking around. He's trying to find. He stumbles upon Drusilla, who silently like stalks him from her point of view off the train, and then he nearly gets off the train, and she pulls him back in. It's all extremely bad horror movie. And it's just like, that doesn't sound like Drusilla. She doesn't really move fast. We've never seen Drusilla move particularly quickly.
Yeah, we also, I think it was reasonably menacing in the sense it's been a while since we've seen a room full of people just murdered by a vampire. Like you do, I think occasionally to read, particularly when you're, like in this episode, we also have two vampires who are nesting, who are doing popcorn over a hot plate, so you kind of have to inject a bit of the horror back in occasionally. Yeah.
You do. It was effective, but it was weird. And knowing it was Drusilla is like, oh, that doesn't really match. One of the things that Mark Field notes about this episode, and a couple of places I saw noted about it, is that it reflects the episode Angel quite a lot. So season 1, episode 9, I want to say, where Angel is in a situation where he essentially is presented to some degree with a choice between staking Buffy, between Buffy and Darla, where Darla is basically saying you need to choose between us, essentially, with her actions. And it's a similar situation where Buffy is tied up and Angel does end up staking Darla, and it feels like Spike is trying to recreate this moment for himself in a twisted format. And you've noted, I think Doug Petrie said that about Spike, that they've tried to they're trying in this episode to show that he is actually gross, or there's a grossness to this, that like while people are getting really into the kind of like the spuffy stuff, that like Spike isn't like Angel.
It's funny because I never really think about how even at the time, in what seems like a very long time ago, that this fandom was obviously ongoing alongside the episodes, but something that I think it was Doug Petrie specifies is this, specifically when they're in college, there's an inclusion of a conversation about the Hunchback of Notre Dame and Quasimodo's relationship with Esmeralda, I think.
And how he's actually like a monster at his core and he has no empathy. And
well, no, actually, to be fair, like Tara's point was that his behavior isn't reflective of love because it's selfishly motivated. Now, I don't know enough about the original text.
So Doug Petrie has, let me just check. No, David Fury has acknowledged that his reading of the Hunchback of Notre Dame was wildly off base. He was like, I did not understand that. He probably just didn't read it.
Yeah, no, I haven't read it, so I can't say whether it's right or not, but the point that they're making is a comparison with Spike, that it's not actually collaborative love, or like something that's like altruistically motivated if it can turn on a dime the way that Spike does. And to be fair, like I think what they're trying to, like, Drew and Spike both make the point that contrary to Buffy's understanding of vampires, and like Buffy's understanding of vampires and souls and all that, it's always a little self-serving. It's always a little like black and white, as perhaps befitting the fact that she is the vampire slayer. But they say no, vampires are perfect capable of love. It's just the way they do it and how it expresses it. Love as a fervor, as an ardor, as a passion, entirely there. But the elements which allow it to be fruitful is not part of it. So I think it is interesting to look at Spike as someone who is really trying to figure this thing out but doesn't quite have the instrumentality for it. Or the instrumentation rather, and he is trying to either just replicate behaviors or when it doesn't work, think that he can just tie people up and shout at them until they love him. And obviously you can draw some very obvious kind of lines from that to various toxic masculine behaviors and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I mean, yeah, we gave Xander such a hard time through the years over, like, you know, not perceived slights, they're definite awful things he did, and you know, we basically we called him out constantly on his like this gross toxic masculine behavior, and it really does feel like, you know, I think that's written into Spike's character, like, you know, just out for a walk, bitch. It's like, that's just gross misogynist language.
He also says puffed her a little bit too often for my liking.
I never know if it's...
I know it's a British thing.
But I never know if there's actually someone on the British... a British person on the crew who could even say, oh, hey, that means...
See, this episode confirmed for me that at least someone was aware of it, because when they find the two vampires nesting together, he in that context says, oh, do you think they're a couple of pufters?
Oh, gross.
Yeah, so like it wasn't just like ponces or whatever. Yeah.
Spike is just generally a gross character who does gross things.
That's true. He is a vampire.
But people like him for it because they think he's like a bad boy. And it's like, anyway, I think, yeah.
He's a very bad boy.
Like, if we're trying to identify who is the bad guy within the Scooby Gang, it's definitely Spike. It's not Xander, you know. Yeah. But I think the popularity of the character and the smoothing over of the difficulties within the character kind of like get incorporated as the show goes on. I think what happens realistically is that, like, yeah, the show has two conflicting approaches. At this point, they're trying to say, oh, look, this is complicated, it's messy, and ultimately it's bad what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And then the show later on tries to say, oh, let's just kind of stop looking at that and try to fix it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's been a mess. What other things do we want to hit on before we kind of move on?
So what did you feel about the developing character relationship between Spike and Dawn in this episode?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one in the sense that I think it's trying to get at something about Buffy and Angel, and then the whole complexity of transposing that relationship onto this, where Dawn is actually like getting onto the age where at the same age as Buffy was when her and Angel started going out, which is gross. But it's an unusual one. I think, like, I mean, as a dynamic duo, they're great and like, you know, absolutely, like, you know, 14-year-olds fancy adults, you know, and Spike very specifically isn't reciprocating that.
Yeah.
So that's,
to be fair on that point, it's not that at all.
There's a lot of chillness there because I actually think that's like a good note for this show, is pursuing that dynamic where it's actually fun and silly and and like, I mean, enjoyable as like interactions. I think they bounce off each other quite well. And it's very funny given that they were in lots of ways very shoehorned in characters within the show. Exactly.
You could argue that they're both bolt-ons to the cast.
Yeah.
And yet work very well. And yeah, no, I agree. And I think if you want to take it slightly more into the thematically serious area or terrain, the show has always had such a great relationship with almost every character except for Xander, of showing how immiscible monstrousness is within people. It's like you can't partition monstrousness. If you have a drop, it kind of is part of everything, or it informs everything. You have that with the darkness that's in Buffy, with Willow's evil magic, all this kind of stuff, evil magic in quotation marks, etc. And with both Dawn and Spike, I think they have an interesting relationship on the basis that they are, he has a very compelling conversation in this where he says, she's like, I'm not human, or at least I wasn't originally. And he was like, well, I originally was human. I got over that. It doesn't matter what you start out as. It matters what you are.
Yeah.
But they both could be under the umbrella of like the monstrous community kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the Buffy kind of like monstrousness within, I think her revulsion of Spike's attraction in this episode, I mean, apart from the practical, is very much about, she feels like he sees the monstrous within her and is attracted to that. I think that's the fear at the heart of the season and what she's kind of looking at. But no, I think that point about that kind of very existential point of what are you now and what have you constructed around the lack of meaning and formlessness that exists is very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of, is there anything else, any significant stuff we want to discuss? The bronze is back.
Yeah, the bronze is back, and by all accounts it's being redesigned.
It looks exactly the same.
The stage, the shape of the stage is different.
And there's no rafters area anymore.
There is, though. Like, they literally killed two people in it in this episode.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
I felt like you were going to say that, but like, no, it's specifically still there. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's. I imagine that from a production point of view, they probably opened up the floor or something, so they can move around a bit more. But no, it felt very similar. But yeah, redesigned and a new logo outside.
Yeah.
And there was also a section of the episode where they went to the warehouse district, quote unquote, and it was just the bronze, but they'd taken the sign off the front. Yeah.
I'm also pretty convinced that the train station that they go to, I'm pretty sure it's the train station from The Good Place.
Ye Olde Sunnydale train station.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was when they really did present like not as a modern metropolitan train station, but just like a prospector who arrived in California.
Well, I mean, like, America's train like infrastructure, it doesn't exist. They have Amtrak and nothing else. It's so weird.
That's what Jeopardy told us. Yeah,
they did tell us that. We've been watching a lot of Jeopardy.
I think going forward, if we have any incorrect US opinions, you can just blame it on what Jeopardy has told us, because we're getting a lot of information from that.
We sure are, and unless they correct it in the next week, we don't know.
Yeah.
Which I do sometimes. It's so wholesome, though. I really like Jeopardy. And I'm sad that Alex Trebek died.
It is a shame that he is dead.
Okay. Should we move on to the...
Please.
Onto the... Dusting. Yeah, that's the one that it's called. Okay, some Buffy bits for you. So yeah, this is the bronze will be the same for the rest of the season of the show. This is the final appearance of Harmony and Buffy, and we were trying to figure out when she comes back in Angel, and you reckon it's season 4, late season 4 or season 5. But
it's at least season 5, but I suspect she could have
she's definitely in season 5, yeah.
1 or 2 appearances in late season 4.
I'm surprised
we could just check that.
Yeah, we really could. I'm surprised she doesn't. I'd be surprised if she was gone from the show for 3 years. Though,
yeah, and then come back. Yeah,
which that would mean that she doesn't appear until during season 7 of Buffy, if you get me, at the earliest. At one point, Drusilla says when Buffy's suggesting that they can't love each other, she says we can love quite well, if not wisely. Or I'm not sure if she says if not wisely. I think she says something else, but it's a paraphrase from Othello, and a very appropriate, I think, to be saying Drusilla being a very Desdemona-ish character. And yeah, it was a nice little Shakespearean note. Spike, when he's staking out the warehouse district with Buffy, he sings "I Want to Be Sedated" by the Ramones, which and then asks Buffy, does she like the Ramones? It was very unusual. I would have to imagine he would be more of a Clash fan. The Clash fan. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that song specifically, I will never not think of My So-Called Life when I listen to it, because do you remember when Rayanne at one point goes to sing it in front of with a band?
Okay.
I don't remember what the band is called, but she's replacing Tito, this character who never shows up, and she freaks out. She can't sing it. And then Jordan Catalano sings it instead. And of course, what's his name?
Oh, My So-Called Life, for whatever reason I was picturing Gilmore Girls. But
okay.
Ricky?
No, Jordan Catalano.
No, but you said what's his name, so I thought you were talking about a third person, but you mean Jared Leto.
Jared Leto, of course, is like a rock singer for 30 Seconds to Mars, which is one of the most dull bands of all time. And yeah, final appearance of Drusilla. I think that's most of my notes. How about you, Joel?
Yeah, so some interesting things in this episode. I noticed a reference when Xander says to Spike, "Hey, Evil Dead, you're in my seat."
You sure does say that, yeah.
Reference Evil Dead, have to know that. There's just a whole lot of weird stagecraft or stage business where when Spike is kind of being almost bashful or uncomfortable around Buffy, he like gets up from his chair and like awkwardly knocks over his beer and then straightens it up, and it's a weird little note. I also enjoyed that Buffy, when she sees on the newspaper that someone's reading in college about the train murders, she just like commandeers the newspaper and takes it from it. You can hear it in the background, the extra being like, "I was still reading that." Yeah. But it's like, I think she's like, takes out her Slayer license and it's like, "I need to commandeer this newspaper." So I did enjoy that. And then like weird comic notes throughout the episode. Like, for example, when Buffy goes on the train murder site, she sits down deliberately in the tape outline of where the body was.
Yeah. I saw somewhere that suggested that was like foreshadowing of her dying, and I was like, it's probably just a visual joke.
Yeah. And every scene that Drusilla was in, it almost suggests that Drew is like not just like clairvoyant, but actually psychic, and could see like see inside Spike's head to a certain degree. It's like, oh, I'll turn this off, or as if telekinetic. That's what it kind of portrayed as. And every scene she was in was just like 10% too funny, and not kind of like, ooh, that my dolls are whispering in my ears. It was just occasionally she was just like making funny faces behind Buffy while something else was happening. So it felt very much like Juliet Lando, a little bit in there rather than Drusilla.
It did a little bit.
I enjoyed that.
Do you have any fashion notes?
Yes, and some terrible fashion in this episode.
Really?
The way Spike is dressed for most of the episode, I feel was meant to suggest that he was dressing more normcore, but they never actually called it out, so I wasn't certain.
I do have normcore on my notes too, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like a blue. Now I'm probably going to end up describing what I wore yesterday, but like a weird brown leather jacket, a blue check shirt, and just all this stuff that doesn't go with the Johnny Rotten thing that he's doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not Johnny Rotten, but okay.
I just wind you up.
Okay. He also wears a grey ribbed jumper at one point, and it's actually quite nice. I was like, it's weird. Buffy wears a gold jacket at one point when she gets home from
I have that noted as her lino jacket.
It does look like lino. It's disgusting and I hate it. And Tara is wearing a really bizarre pink Sphinx t-shirt where it says Sphinx in the front, and it has like mottled arms and stuff, and it was just one of the worst things I've ever seen. And then Willow is wearing towards the end of the episode, when she's advising Buffy to be careful of Spike, she's wearing a velour pink scarf, which just looks like it feels disgusting, on top of a green sweater which has lots of patches of dogs on it and a blue ribbon. And it was, I don't know, I think the costume department just that day was just taking the piss.
They're just like leftovers from Dawson's Creek or whatever.
Do you have a death count, Joe?
I do. There were the two canoodlers on the balcony on the scaffolding that had their necks snapped by Drusilla. Reveler 1 and Reveler 2, male and female. There was the 5 people killed on Ye Olde Sunnydale trainee, not including Sutton Faster, who was the train conductor who went on with his big whistle or whatever to check on them. And that was it, really.
Okay, great. Lovely. And rating. Do you have a rating, Joe?
Yeah, I'd probably give this episode a 6.7 big bottles of aspirin in the club. Okay,
tell me about it.
Yeah, like I like it's more starting at 0 and working its way up rather than starting at 10 and working its way down. You know, I thought it was fun to watch. Portrayals were interesting, loads of little details. At one point, Buffy went down into Spike's crypt and it was like laid out like a set from Indiana Jones. It was unnecessarily like medieval.
And then she finds his like drawings of her, which looked eerily similar to Angel's drawings of her.
Yeah,
and a little shrine to her and the Buffy bot, like proto bot, whatever it's called.
Manicabot.
Yeah.
But yes, so I enjoyed all that, and I thought it had some interesting things to think about and discuss, but it wasn't like a great episode of television.
No.
But it was a good time, which is the secondary function of television.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 6.0. I don't know. I didn't take very many notes during this episode. Ramones out of 10?
You could just say that. 6.0. I don't know. I didn't take any notes.
Fine. Okay.
For the wiki. Yeah, the Buffy Boys wiki.
So yeah, it was fine. Not great. I wouldn't rewatch it. Like voluntarily.
But you don't regret watching it?
No, I don't think I regret watching any episode of Buffy. Maybe.
Well, go fish.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, and the Cordelia chase.
Yeah. So lots to deep dive into over here on the Cordelia chase.
Jesus Christ.
We have this week on Angel. We watched. Well, we were both present for a playing of the episode, The Thin Dead Line. Which is a continuation of this arc.
Very uncomfortable mixture of two phrases. The thin blue line being what people refer to as a police, but also an Errol Morris documentary. And then deadline makes it sound like it's a deadline. as
Yeah.
opposed to just dead line.
Yeah.
I think it's just badly written because the police are zombies.
Yeah. So yeah, police are zombies. Spoilers. So the whole thing is like the Angel investigations crew is still separated. The crew minus Angel are trying to do their own thing out of their office, their little crappy office, and Angel. Gosh, who even gets them onto this one? I think it was Kate Lockley got them onto this one. And the thrust of the episode is that in this disadvantaged community near where both Gung lived and where Ang, who is from the previous episode, set in the homeless youth shelter, are being harassed by police officers who, US police officers who are notably, there's something wrong with their behavior and supernaturally wrong, denoted by the fact that they are being unnaturally aggressive towards people. So that's the kind of territory we're wading into. There's what I will say in terms of positives in the episode, I think the Angel investigation minus Angel crew do a serviceable job together. They're always fun to watch. Cordelia, Wesley, Gunn doing their thing, etc. I think Anne continues to actually be a great character. I wish there was more of her in the show.
I like her too.
And that might be it. There's some funny stuff that happens. Otherwise, that amused me.
Not ha funny.
Yeah. So the plot of the episode is basically that the local police chief is reviving officers who were shot or killed in the line of duty to help them be more militant in the patrol of the streets, in what is portrayed as a predominantly black neighborhood, in many ways. So there's just a lot of problems with it from a plotting and Monster Week point of view. While they are zombie cops, when they're reanimated, they just look like cops.
Yeah.
So they're zombified only when they're killed, which is actually not very often in this episode. Otherwise, they just seem to very robotically be like, we will review your rights, and then when you don't respond immediately, they shoot you.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that. Wesley gets shot by a cop at one point, and it's like a dramatic slow motion fall, and everything goes photo negative. So that's the kind of vibe we're talking about. And there's a scene where Gung with his crew take an enormous like it's almost like Homer with his 10-gallon Texas hat with the big camera inside of it. They take a camcorder, put it in Gung's jacket, and their great plan is to film Gung being provoked or having an altercation with the cop. None of it is actively offensive.
None of that is actually offensive. What is offensive is the fact that basically one of the points of it is they're like, yeah, well, crime is way down in this district. So, and then they're also like, they introduce a character who is black and who is like a criminal, and they're like, and Wesley knows him. Sorry, Gunn knows
Wesley
him,
doesn't know.
and he wants to go to Anne's shelter or whatever.
Yeah,
and they're like, Wesley or Gunn's like, you're the problem here, essentially.
Yeah,
and it's like, I mean, let's not both sides this, it's
so a classic approach for an episode like this, or a premise of the week like this, is to present a situation which you can have a final scene which is kind of slightly ambiguous. It's like, is the world better off without, this person did a bad thing but they had good motives, and is the world better off without it? And actually that ending is also very common to something like a Law and Order episode or something like that, where they're trying to be like, here's this dramatic last statement. And that's what they try to do here, except it's really wildly obvious that like it is better not having zombie police officers just menacing and shooting up the whole community,
Yeah.
And I don't feel any of it is like actively trying to be malicious, but the portrayal once again of the black people is very like stereotypical, just like auto-generated dialogue from what you think the hood sounds like. And yes, the suggestion where Gung is like, sure, it's awful that these all entirely white cops are shooting everyone as zombies, but you're the real problem here, Malik, or whatever name they gave him. I actually don't remember the character's name, but it's along those lines.
But it's very much like, but it's not so much Gunn saying, oh, you're the actual problem. He's like, they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. And it's like,
you're part of the problem. It's like,
and it's like, well, no, the problem is, the problem is the America.
Yeah.
And blaming individuals for it as well.
But the wild thing is, I know we say that. I don't know if this episode was anything other than a premise. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was written aware that they were reflecting on like Rodney King and police violence or anything like that. As
Yeah,
much
the
as
Rodney King stuff definitely with the camcorder,
Yeah.
because that's obviously the turning point for. Anyway.
And maybe it was there, but again, without malice from the writers, I felt like if you made those comparisons, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that actually is kind of
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
so right.
I kind of feel like it was just a bit of zombie policeman, but there is a bit where Angel high kicks a police officer and kicks his head clean off.
That was good.
Which again is like, what was the plan if he was human?
Yeah.
So like not a good episode. Oh, and there's a little girl with a third eye in the back of her head, which
Yeah.
will recur in 2 more episodes.
Bizarre.
So yeah, like five failed feminist gestures.
4 fell feminist
4.
gestures.
Yeah, no, I think I gave Brian. I'm allowed.
You always change.
I'm allowed. Well, that's because I agree with your fantastic opinions.
No, you don't.
I think I gave 5 to a better episode recently, so I will say 4 because it wasn't. Again, there is a very low cast of Buffy and Angel episode where it's like I'm offended by this episode. It didn't go there, but it was really on the board. It was the naivete of the writing that saved it from actually just like if you wrote that episode today. Like you would not hear the end of it on Twitter. I'll put it that way.
So true. Okay, that's it.
That's the end of the episode for us. So thanks very much for listening. We hope you enjoyed. We hope you didn't miss us too much. If you did like the episode, as always, please let us know. It makes our day. And also tell your friends and tell your old-timey train conductor. And we will see you.
Oh.
Hey, Booker.
What?
And we will see you next time on Booker Boys. No, sorry.
Buffy
Bookers.
Buffy Bookers, yeah. Oh, God. I feel like I should say something funny here. No, it's not
Well,
funny.
why break the habit of a lifetime, Brian?
Yeah. Okay.
Buffy Boys, see ya.
See yous.